Rube.
Hey, Dave. How's it going?
It's going well.
There's an NFL game a week from tonight.
That's exciting.
And then a few days after that, Eagles play. So we're getting there.
We're getting there. It's almost game week. We're in that kind of a weird purgatory between training camp and game week.
It's weird when they got rid of the last preseason game. It's a weird dynamic.
Yeah, the Eagles
so you have this huge buildup and then nothing.
Yeah, on Wednesday they kind of had their what they call their fourth preseason game. Really a scrimmage, but we don't get to watch it. So
we were not in there for that.
This is the Eagle Eye Podcast. He's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. I'd like to apologize to the nation of Canada. Apparently, no one in the history of that fine nation has ever said Calgary. I regret the error.
I think you were thinking of like Ireland.
I don't know. It will never happen again.
Glenn, Gary.
I don't know.
Roster.
Don't know. Sometimes like you just something gets in your brain and just think it is, and then it's not.
Every day.
It's fair. But there has been some news since the roster has been finalized. The Eagles haven't changed their 53 at all, but they have brought some guys back to the practice squad. So we'll go through the list of those players, 13 who were here before, 3 new guys. Well, I guess one of them has been here before.
Right.
We want to look at one of the interesting parts of the construction of this roster that you wrote about. We'll get into some depth on that. We'll look at the roster and maybe some positions we think they might still add before the opener. And then we were over there today on Thursday, watching a little bit of practice, talking to a few players. So we'll kind of recap the day. But you want to start with the practice squad?
Yeah.
I think the two biggest questions after the roster was finalized were about punter and punt returner. But they had no problem getting Aaron Siposs and Britton Covey through waivers, and they added both of those guys to the practice squad.
Yeah, and so they're available as needed, most likely a week from Sunday to start with, and then we'll see what happens. I still think Howie's going to be looking for a punter. I don't know if you can find one. It's like everyone's tweeting to me like they got to upgrade. It's not that easy. And people were talking about the guy the Steelers cut, and you start comparing his numbers to Siposs. And I apologize, I forgot his name. I'm not like you with punters. Like you're a big punter guy.
Am I a big punter guy?
But
I think it's just relatively
big punter guy. Man. And the numbers, I mean, the inside the 20 numbers, the touchback numbers, the net and the gross, they're all like all the guys that are out there are similar to Siposs. So considering his ability to hold and Jake Elliott's comfort level with him, I think you'd have to find someone appreciably better than Siposs to replace him.
Although, I mean, it is worth pointing out, and I was talking to someone in the organization about this the other day, Elliott looked really good with both guys holding this summer. So it's kind of a two sides here. On one side, they really care about that operation, and you don't want to screw it up because Jake Elliott is so good. On the other side of it, he was kicking great with both of those guys all summer, and it is a significant difference holder to holder. It sounds like it's put the ball down, you kick it, but there's a lot that goes into that I don't think anyone else really thinks about. Yeah. So I think they're going to still look to upgrade, but I think you're right. I don't know if there's an obvious answer.
Yeah, and I still think at some point Siposs won't be this team's punter.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's a little different at punt returner. I think they're probably okay with Britton Covey.
Yeah.
I mean, could they get better? Yeah, possibly. But we talked about it so much. Like he got so much better in the second half of last year to the point where, I think you kind of want that guy returning punts.
Yeah. After week 4, he was 11.7. The rest of the year, he had a 27-yarder in the Super Bowl. I'm fine with him. I think they are too. Yeah.
And, you're playing this roster juggling a little bit because you can only elevate these guys 3 times, but you can do it. The tricky thing is I was talking to someone yesterday about this, finding the inactive players, because if you elevate 2 guys, then you need an extra 2 inactive on game day. I think there are some obvious ones. Albert O just got here. He'll be inactive. I think Keely Ringo, pretty good guy to have inactive.
I think, yeah.
Maybe Sua, maybe Tyler Steen early in the year.
Could be.
So there are some places, but something to think about.
Yeah.
I'm already building my inactive list for week 1.
Dave's obsessed with the inactive list.
A little bit. It's a little game I play each week.
If you want to know what Dave's doing in the press box from like 10 a.m. to 11:30.
Well, the tricky thing is I normally have a TV hit at 11:30 or, an hour and a half before kickoff when the inactives come out. So it's a game, but I also have to try to nail it because I'm not around to write any surprises.
Yeah. So Dave's pre-writing the inactives. And who's your big consult? You consult with Kempsky. Who are the other big?
Normally me, Kempsky, and Elliott are the ones trying to figure it out.
Yeah. So you're in good company there.
All right. So Sipos and Covey on the practice squad. They have 4 receivers, including Covey, but 3 other receivers: Devin Allen, Greg Ward, and Joseph Ngata.
Yeah, Greg Ward. I mean, he's. Somebody asked, why do they keep him around? You keep him around for a few reasons. Number one, he knows this offense so well. He runs great routes. He's a guy you want to practice because he's going to run the scout team as well as anybody. He's so smart. He's been around 7 years now.
Since 17.
And Jalen loves him.
And they have used him in the past, too, as like a scouting of a mobile quarterback.
Yeah.
Versatile guy.
And he can throw the ball. So, yeah, he could do that. And Jalen loves him, and the other receivers just think the world of him. And he's really – it's funny. Somebody was telling me he's one of our best leaders. It was one of the other receivers, and you don't think of a guy in the practice squad. But if you're in the locker room,
I think we look – like I think some people – outside of the building look down on the practice squad
or look at it differently.
Inside that building, it's like they're all in this together. And as hokey as that sounds, I don't think they're looking at it like, oh, I'm on the real roster and you're on the practice.
Nobody looks at that. Like if you ask Lane Johnson, is Julian Good-Jones on the 53 of the practice squad? He probably wouldn't know.
You might be right about that.
He just sees him, at practice and he's on the team. Yeah. The players don't know who's on the practice squad and who's not.
Yeah, their bank accounts do.
Yeah, and again, you get a game check when you get elevated. So,
if you don't, it's a significant difference.
It's still good money.
It's still good money. Yeah. All relative, though.
I think what's the minimum is like 130.
Oh, it's over 200. I think
the minimum for rookies.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll have to check that.
Yeah, I don't. My last time I was reading a CBA, I think
all 800 pages.
The last CBA. I printed it out and I had it in a binder, and then I realized that was insane.
Yeah.
It's much easier as a document because then you can search for words. But I would have like areas highlighted and stuff.
That's just weird.
Devin Allen, interesting guy to keep around. I think he could help them on special teams as a gunner, but I don't know if it's worth it to just bring him up for that right away. But keeping him around makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Even though he's 28 and you're thinking like, man, when is this project going to end? Not yet.
He's a pretty good gunner. I mean, that's his best value on the team, and they could use it.
He's my second favorite gunner.
Behind Gunner?
Yeah, behind Derek Gunner, buddy. And then Joseph Ngata, not surprised they kept him around. He showed some good things early.
Yeah.
In the summer, I thought he tailed off a little bit. I kind of like that Jaden Hazelwood a little bit. I guess you can't keep 5 receivers on your practice squad.
Yeah, and we'll see different guys, and we'll see guys come and go on a practice squad. Minimum is 216.
Yeah.
For practice squad. For older guys, like if you're LaRaven Clark, I believe you make $20,000 a week.
Okay.
Which is $360. According to the CBA, the practice squad minimum is going to go up to $16,750 by 2030.
Okay.
So by then you'll be making minimum will be over 300. Although season might be 20 weeks, so that might be even higher.
Sure.
By then.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right.
It's good money.
Yeah. Well, let's go through the list of these other players.
Yeah.
We'll give a quick thought on each of them and whether or not we think the Eagles might use them this year. Next one is Kyron Johnson, 6th-round pick last year out of Kansas.
And considering all the special teamers that they lost, I think there's a chance we'll see him.
I do too. He's been dealing with an appendectomy. He had that this summer, so he missed the last 2 preseason games, a bunch of practice. I think he might actually make the active roster at some point this year.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. Mekhi Garner, Had
another. I was gonna say another young corner that undrafted who's got some talent. I thought he had a good camp.
You could argue that he had a better camp in terms of just the practices than Eli Ricks.
He was more likely to clear waivers.
Mm-hmm. And he did. So they handled that the right way. They have so many young corners who showed something. You know, you think about Job, who, I mean, he had the team made from the get-go pretty much, but Mario Goodrich, undrafted, Garner, undrafted. You know, Keely Ringo's just turned 21 and didn't have a great camp, but you can see there's something there. Are we talking about this now, or do you want to save it?
No, we'll save it.
Okay.
But I like Garner is what I'm saying.
Sure.
I don't think there's a role for him. I don't think we'll see him on the 53 this year, but I like keeping him around. Yeah,
he's more like the practice squad is kind of segmented into guys who might help them this year and guys they're just trying to develop because they think they might have something. A guy like Kyron, I think, you might use him this year, whereas Garner is really a developmental piece. Right. Tristan McCollum, the safety, a guy who we didn't really talk about much this summer. We knew he wasn't going to make the active roster, but he ends up making the practice squad. I thought he did show some flashes all summer.
Yeah, he's the only safety, right, on the practice squad.
Yeah. And we should mention that a couple of Eagles were claimed. Kayvon Wallace got claimed by the Cardinals. Jonathan Gannon scooped him up. And then Josh Sills got claimed by the Colts. Shane Steichen got him.
And Tyree Jackson signed with the Giants.
Practice squad,
yeah. So, but, McCollum, I mean, at that position, just keep working. You might have a chance to play.
Probably true. All right. Teron Jackson. He's another guy. If there's ever an injury, I think they would call him up pretty quick.
Yeah, and he's the only edge, I think, on the practice squad.
Well, Kyron.
Kind of, yeah. I think of him more as a special teamer. I thought Teron Jackson is a guy that's got some potential as an edge. Still a young guy. So
thought he showed more juice last training camp than this training camp, but still had good moments.
Yeah.
Especially in that preseason. You watch that pen.
Not bad.
Okay.
I need a pencil.
Yeah. You need something that doesn't click. What we got? You
I have
good?
a pen, but it's not a
clicky top.
Not a clickable pen.
What do you write with normally? A clicky top or a cat pen?
I only write with a blue gel pen.
Gel pen. I don't like that. It goes too fast. My handwriting's bad enough. I need something to pull me back a little bit.
Did you work with Jeff Offord at Burlington?
I did, yeah.
Jeff, one of my best friends, late Jeff Offord from Burlington. He and I were obsessive about blue gel pens. And say somebody's wanted to give you her phone number or his phone number or anything, it's like you run into, Jalen Hurts, you say, hey, let me give you my cell. If he just had a black pen, I would not use it. If that was the only pen around, I will not use any black pen. And Jeff and I shared this obsession.
That's insane. You make fun of me for a lot of my idiosyncrasies.
That's like an idiosyncrasy that you would have.
It is. I'm a clicky top guy, though.
Yeah.
Because the cap, I'll lose it.
Yeah.
It'll.
Oh, absolutely.
And then I'll write on myself. Yeah. Clicky guy all the way.
Yeah.
All right. Brett Toth.
A little surprised to see him.
I guess it's like they've put so much time into Brett Toth. You want to just cut your losses. They don't. I thought he had a really rough summer.
They must see something in him.
Well, yeah, and I saw something once in him too, and they played him out of position this summer, which didn't help his cause.
Yeah, he's not a center.
I think that part of the experiment is over.
Hope so.
Yeah. Ben Van Sumeren.
Yeah.
He could be a little bit of both because he should be good at special teams. I don't know if it's going to be this year.
Yeah, I think that's going to depend on how special teams plays. If they feel like they need a change, I think he's got a chance just because there's not a lot of core special team guys. I don't think it'll be from the get-go, but he's so athletic. He should be a really good special teamer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's fair. Brady Russell, tight end, quietly performed well this summer. Was not surprised to see him back on the practice squad, especially after Tyree Jackson took a trip up 95.
Yeah. Yeah, you were on him pretty early. You liked him. Didn't he catch a touchdown in one of the preseason games?
Yeah, he did. I mean, it wasn't a great play, but he got in the end zone.
from
Colorado.
No, from McKee, right?
Oh, yeah.
Marriott. It was McKee, right?
McKee, yeah.
Yeah. We got a lot of tight ends now.
Well, 4 on the active roster, which is a lot, but
5 in a room is a lot of tight ends.
it is. The weird thing about the construction of the roster is you have 4 running backs, 4 tight ends, 4 receivers. Not like not the way you would draw that up.
Yeah.
But I also don't think they're going to cut any of these tight ends.
Yeah, I thought when they acquired Albert O, we had just asked him how to pronounce his name. You were there.
Yeah.
And I'm asking you to pronounce his name.
I want to see if you got it.
Albert O. I thought there's a chance Calcaterra could go. But
yeah, I mean,
still here.
They put time into Calcaterra. He played last year. He didn't play poorly. Thought he had an okay summer. To just give up on him. Now, he maybe at some point he'll clear waivers,
Yeah. It's interesting to me. It's not, I don't think it's a problem. It's interesting.
It's Okwebanon, by the way.
Okwebanon.
Yeah.
Somebody asked him how to pronounce his middle name, which is even longer.
His middle name is a mouthful. I don't know in what context I would use his middle name.
That's fair. Well, he was answering all these questions about pronouncing his last name and his middle name. And I said, how do you pronounce your first name?
That's good.
Albert.
Okwebanon. It was funny. No one gave me credit the other day for pronouncing it correctly in the press conference.
There was a reason for that.
We were scrambling to see who was on the football team.
That was part of it.
Yeah. All right.
Who else?
So those are Julian Good-Jones.
Yeah.
Sneaky roster guy, I thought.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been shocked if he made the roster.
Nor I. Had a good camp. Come a long way.
Mm-hmm. From the great country of Canada the last 2 years.
Who did he play for?
Calgary.
Does it hurt you to say that?
I went the other way.
Calgary.
All right. So those are the 13 guys who are here during the summer. We know a bunch about them. 3 newcomers, Tywan Mullen, the cornerback, defensive tackle Thomas Booker, and offensive tackle Reuben Clark, who's been here, been around for a long time.
Is he the oldest practice squatter since Josh McCown?
He is. Yeah. I mean, he's 30.
Yeah.
And I guess they just look at him like a better option than Dennis Kelly. I think this makes sense because the Eagles are so aware that injuries on the offensive line can just wreck a season.
Yeah.
So I totally get it. Like last year, they brought in some guys during the year if they needed them in a pinch. I get having a guy like Reuben Clark on your practice squad.
Yeah. And he can play guard in a pinch if he has to, but he's pretty much a tackle. But we talked about offensive line depth, which I don't think is great on the 53. So having a guy like that makes sense.
Yeah, and he's a little younger than Dennis Kelly, and maybe I guess they just think he gives them more than Dennis Kelly, or maybe Kelly wasn't interested in being a practice squad guy.
Could be that. Dennis Kelly was really bad.
He struggled.
He had a tough summer.
That might be the last we see of him.
Might be.
Yeah, heck of a career.
Yeah.
Late round pick in 2012. Played a long time in this league.
Yeah, played 11 years.
Made a lot of money. Good for him.
Yeah, longer career than the guy who was traded for.
That's true.
Green Beckham.
Yeah. Thomas Booker, 5th round pick. Houston drafted him last year out of Stanford. Played a little bit. 10 games, started 1. Some tools there. I don't know if he's ever going to be a great player, but it's a position they value, and don't hate that. He was probably a better option than some of the depth defensive tackles they signed in a pinch late in camp.
Yeah, no doubt. He's a big dude, 6'4", 310. I guess relatively. He's from Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
So he went from Maryland to Stanford. Interesting. Is Maryland really bad in football these days?
No. Coach Loxley is there.
Oh, yeah.
All right. And then Tywan Mullen, young cornerback, like nickel corner size, played outside in college. So he's got to kind of learn how to do that. Played at Indiana. Are you clicking that pen again?
No, I was just, no.
Okay.
The pen's safely out of my reach.
All right. Spent the summer with the Chargers. They cut him. So Eagles will give it a shot. Another undrafted guy. That's all.
Yeah, that's it.
I don't know much.
Anybody you're surprised we didn't see?
Janaris Robinson. Look, I thought he showed some good things this summer. It wasn't as consistent as you'd like. Even in the games, we saw him flash at times, get in the backfield, and then just not sack the quarterback.
Yeah.
But the Eagles kept him around all last year. He was on the active roster all last year. I don't believe anyone else has signed him.
No, I haven't seen his name come up. One guy I was surprised maybe we would have seen was Tyreek Maddox-Williams.
Yeah, I just don't think he did enough.
Well, he wasn't here long enough.
Yeah.
I don't think he's signed anywhere, any practice squad anywhere.
He's not. And we should mention Trey Sermon was waived with an injury designation, so he's now on IR. So for all those Trey Sermon lovers out there, and we know there's a lot of them, he's still in the building, he's still around, but he's on IR.
Yep.
You want to talk about these undrafted defensive backs a little bit? You alluded to it earlier, jumped the gun, but the Eagles they throw darts at this position. They get young guys with skills. They try to develop them. A lot of times it doesn't work, but it seems like they've gotten a few to at least be roster worthy.
Yeah, to have 3 undrafted young cornerbacks on the same roster of a Super Bowl hopeful type of team is unheard of. Goodrich was on practice squad last year. Obviously, Job made the roster last year, and he's now the top outside backup.
There's 4
corners,
defensive backs.
Well, yeah, I was just talking corners.
Oh,
okay.
yeah,
you had Reed into the equation, and obviously Reed and Job and Goodrich are the same class, which is crazy. And then Ricks comes in this year, just brimming with confidence. So they have 4 undrafted D backs, 3 undrafted corners. They've never had that. I could search every roster thanks to StatHead, even though I'm mad at StatHead.
Me too. It's
got to be really rare. And I don't know what they'll get from these guys. I think Job's going to have a nice career. And, you look at Bradbury and Slay both in their 30s, and they're going to need corners at some point in the next couple of years. So I really like Ricks. I think Ricks has a chance to be a starting cornerback in the league.
You know who Job reminds me of? I was trying to figure this out. Not to go but in Houston, early in his career, AJ Boye.
Oh, yeah.
Undrafted kid. But you're watching him. This guy can play. What am I missing here? Kind of similar body build, long, uses that length and those long arms, not afraid in coverage. I see some similarities.
And like all these guys, Ricks played at LSU and then Alabama. Job played at Alabama. Goodrich played at Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
They all played at big time, really big time, either SEC or big time schools. And you can get lost. And they're all really young. And I think we talked about this the other day. Guys can get better. And you get them a good coach. And if they're motivated and hungry, and they can become NFL players. And there's so much value in having guys like that, cap wise. They're all minimum wage type guys. Blankenship has got to be one of the more underpaid guys in the league.
When they divvy up that performance-based pay at the end of the year, Reed Blankenship's going to double his salary.
Yeah, he might triple it. Yeah. So, and then they can redo him after this year because he wasn't drafted.
Yeah.
So I would think they would. But it speaks highly of, and I asked Howie about the undrafted D-backs and corners, and he really was quick to give credit to the scouting staff and not take the bow himself, which I appreciate, because I don't know exactly who discovered each of these guys, but it really speaks highly of the whole staff.
Well, I don't know if they can really take credit for discovering Eli Ricks, but getting him here is another thing.
No, that's fair. The other guys, but Ricks, I'm sure a lot of teams were scared off by Ricks last year at Alabama.
You give Jeffrey some credit too, giving him the deep enough pockets to go and throw some money at these guys and bring them in.
How much did Ricks get? Do you remember?
It wasn't a ton. It was surprisingly lower than some other guys, but it's still they're investing.
Yeah.
And Mario Goodrich was a big number last year.
Yeah.
Reed wasn't. Reed was
it. Was
5.
Job?
Job was middle ground.
Middle ground. So I also think that they've created a place where people like that want to come to.
Sure.
For a couple of reasons. Number one, they know they're going to get a fair shot as an undrafted player. That's not true everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to get reps. If they play well, they're going to get more reps. A lot of places, if you're undrafted, you're just a camp body.
Yeah.
And they won't give those guys a fair shake. And I think players know that if they come here, and I'm sure when, after the draft's over and they start calling these guys, they're like, here's a list of the undrafted guys who've made this team in the past.
It's a good selling point.
It's a good selling point because you don't want to go, you don't want to go somewhere, especially if you're a young corner. That Maddox is a slot, Slay and Bradbury are the starters. So to still come here, there's got to be.
And it's another benefit of having a GM that's not clawing for his job.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of GMs are really pushing their draft picks. It makes them look better.
Yeah.
They don't get as much credit when an undrafted guy works out, which isn't really fair.
Sure.
They should get that credit too, but people are looking at the draft picks, and you look at just this draft, like this roster cut down. They cut a 4th round pick in 2020, Kayvon Wallace, to keep Mario Goodrich, who was an undrafted player last year.
Yeah.
Which is the right move, probably, but I don't know if it's a move that other GMs would have made.
And the thing about it is, like, they haven't drafted a corner in the first 3 rounds in 6 years. So, like, they just have so much confidence in their ability to hit on these guys.
They're starters. They traded for and signed one as a free agent. So
gave him big money, but beyond, and they also know that Slay's 32 and Bradbury's 30.
Yeah, I don't think it's like. I still think they will draft corners.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And they also have, that Isaiah Rodgers. I mean, they've got a deep stable of young corners. He's only 25, I think, right?
He is.
He's the guy who's just suspended all year. He'll be 26 when he's able to play. But they've got some young corners, and it's one of those positions they're always going to, prioritize receiver, corner, and both lines.
Smart way to do business.
It is. It works.
And quarterbacks, of course.
And quarterback.
I think every team is kind of caught up to that.
But I think they're okay there for a while.
Yeah, I think so.
I think Hurts is going to be. I think he's going to be a good player.
Think so? Is that your big take today?
It's amazing that a year ago.
That would have been a big take.
A year ago, and I think we were both pretty bullish on him a year ago.
Bullish to the point where we're like, I think this guy's going to be an okay starter.
Yeah.
I don't know if we saw
MVP runner-up, Super Bowl. I don't think so, but
highest paid player ever for a while.
For 3 days.
A week.
A week. Yeah. But this time last year, I was still getting those tweets saying, he's a running back. He's not. Don't get those anymore.
Yeah. You get them every once in a while from like a Cowboys fan. But
I like to go back and find those and retweet them.
No, but then they'll go back and find our podcast from after they drafted him. We were going, what the heck did they do?
Yeah.
Which I still kind of weirdly stand by.
Yeah.
It was a strange moment.
Yeah, it was.
In team history. It all worked out.
It was also during COVID, so we were doing those podcasts from. It was weird.
Yeah. You wrote about this roster construction and how many young players are on this team. And I think it's a really good point because I look back at the 2017, 2018, 2019, and so much of those subsequent years was about running it back and just trying to push repeat. And it's a really hard thing to do. And to some extent, the Eagles are doing that a little bit, bringing back some older players, but they're also drafting a little better these days. And they're getting more contributions from younger players that it's like a seamless transition. And I think overall their roster last year was probably younger than the first Super Bowl year.
Yeah. I think I think that's something Howie's learned. And I think it all kind of goes hand in hand with the whole organizational philosophy of keeping guys healthy, keeping practices short, younger guys stay healthier. That's a big analytics thing. If you're 25, you just have a much less chance of having a serious injury than if you're 30 or 32 or even 29. So of the 53 guys on the roster today, 33 of them are 26 or younger.
Wow.
And only 8 are 29 or older. So there's that big core that's 27 or 28, like Goddard and Maddox and guys like that.
Reddick.
But well, just listen to this. I mean, these guys are N'Kobe's 22, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith are obviously rookies. Reed Blankenship, Landon Dickerson, Kenny Gainwell, Cam Jurgens, Devontae, DeAndre Swift, Milton Williams, all 24.
Yeah.
Jalen's 25. Quez is 25. Josh Sweat, Jordan Mailata, that whole class of 2018.
They were so young when they drafted them.
Yeah, they're 26. A.J. Brown's 26.
That's why Howie likes to draft young players if all things are equal.
And he's talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The only starters in their 30s are Bradbury, who just turned 30 a couple of weeks ago.
It's always a rough day for the player who turns 30 and now he gets lumped in with all the old guys.
Somebody asked Bradbury about having two corners in their 30s, and he's like, I just turned 30 like 5 days ago. It's like, he's like, yeah, you're 30. But Lane, Kelsey, Fletch, and Slay. And the last time they had that few starters in their 30s was 2010 with Quentin Michael, Jaquay Parker, and Michael Vick. The quarterback was older.
That happens, though.
Yeah. And one interesting thing I found, all the new – so there's 20 players on the roster that weren't here last year on opening day, on the opening day roster. 15 of the 20 are 26 or younger. So even the new guys – and that's different because they didn't sign any.
Yeah, that's because they didn't have any money to spend for free agency. Yeah,
that is part of it. Only one of the new guys that they brought in, who's 25 or older, is signed beyond this year, and that's Big Fred Johnson.
Big Fred, yeah, because everyone else is a 1-year deal.
Everyone else is a 1-year deal, so that's how you keep the roster young, and it gives you so many things. It gives you that health element. I think that the continuity is huge. And that's something they didn't have from 17, really 18, 19. That team, that was the end of the run for a lot of guys.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Devontae's not going anywhere. AJ's not going – you look at the O-line.
That's the most fun part of this roster is having quarterback and those two receivers.
And you have to go back.
I know people are worried about Devontae and, re-signing him. They're going to figure out a way to do that.
He's not going anywhere. Yeah. And DeAndre Swift, here's a guy who's, what was he in Detroit, 3 years?
Mm-hmm.
He's 24.
Another guy who was very young when he got
very young. When Milton Williams, seems like he's been around. The one that blows my mind is Josh Sweat, who's been here for 10 years, and he's 26.
Not quite 10 years.
Seems like it, though. He's been here for a long time. 6th year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is intentional. This is all part of the long-range plan. And I think it's just such a great way to build a roster, staying young. Kenny Gainwell just turned 24. A lot of these guys won't be here next year, but in that middle ground, Zach Cunningham's in that middle ground too. Rashad Penny's was an older player, he's 27, but it's a really, really good way to build a roster, and they're not just young guys, they're talented guys. Like 2017, there were a bunch of young guys on the team, but they didn't have big roles, maybe special teamers or whatever. But everywhere you look in every position group, there's someone.
Yeah, they're getting starter contributions from those younger players.
Yeah,
which is key because the idea is to try to grow with this thing.
Yeah.
And even though Jalen's contract wasn't overly prohibitive, as you see some quarterback contracts, the structure of it, thanks to partly to him and to the organization, it's not killing you, but it does get a little harder to spend big money on players. So we've talked about this a bunch. The draft becomes way more important, but then when you draft players, they're obviously younger, and it kind of works hand in hand.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a break, and then when we get back, we'll kind of pinpoint some areas of the roster we think they could still add some talent. Catch all the sports action and more at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Whether it's the money line or the pass line, there's something for everyone in a great sports book. Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. One position you think the Eagles need to add before the opener?
Why are you talking like that?
I've turned into like a game show host.
Rest in peace, Bob Barker, by the way.
Yeah.
Speaking of game show, who's your favorite game show host?
Ooh. Probably Alex Trebek, but Bob Barker's right up there.
I was a big fan of Peter Marshall on the Pyramid.
I see that was
Pyramid's still on, but not Peter Marshall.
Yeah,
but my favorite was Art James. Art James hosted the Who, What, or Where game. That was a great game show back in the day.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, it's good. I think it's still on one of those channels. Nothing like there's like an old game show channel.
If you could be on a game show, what game show would you want to be on?
I mean, probably Hollywood Squares.
Well,
then I'd be a celebrity. No, I mean, Jeopardy's the obvious answer. I don't think I'd be very good at it because I have a lot of holes in my.
Yeah. Do you know Shane Steichen was once on The Price is Right?
I did not know that.
Yeah, him and his buddies, like when he was living in California, they drove down to a taping, and he got up to the row. He never actually like made it past the row.
Oh, okay.
He would have, and then somebody like bid like $1 more than him and got up there.
Is Brian Johnson.
But that's kind of neat.
It is.
Yeah.
That's cool. What about Let's Make a Deal? That might be fun.
I always thought Family Feud.
I never liked that show.
I like Family Feud.
Never liked Family Feud.
I like the premise of it. I think I'd be good at it. I did a story with Malcolm Jenkins a few years ago because Malcolm was on an NFL version of it. And it's really fun. It's on YouTube probably. And I made him give me, I forget who he said now, but I made him look around the locker room and pick his teammates that he would take on with him if he had to go on.
Interesting. Do you remember who said?
I don't now. That was a few years ago. He hasn't played here in a while.
$10,000 pyramid for me is a really challenging game, especially the end round where you have to describe what's in the box, but you can't, you have to list things, but you can't. Anyway, linebacker. The only off-ball linebackers they have are Nakobe, Zach Cunningham, and
so I found his answer.
Oh, okay.
He said Kelsey,
sure,
Jake Elliott, Josh McCown, and Rodney McLeod.
It's a good team.
Yeah, pretty good team. I think they do well.
Yeah.
That was for one of my Q&As that year.
Yeah, it's good.
Back in 2019. I love that I just remember that.
But yeah, Nakobe, Zach Cunningham, I mean, they need a linebacker.
They do. I mean, that's the glaring one, I think. Receiver is another one where they won't have 4 active. They'll have 5 active on game day, even if it's Britton Covey. You can't go into a game with 4 receivers. You lose one. You can't.
You can't play 4 receivers.
Yeah, it limits you so much.
Yeah.
Now you have the tight ends. I think Albert O will probably be inactive early, so you have Grant Calcaterra who could kind of line up as a receiver if you need him to, but you don't want to put yourself in that position.
Yeah.
If you don't have to.
Right.
You need another receiver.
You do. And
even if it's just Covey off the practice squad for a few weeks, but I don't know if that's ideal.
Can he ever be like a viable slot? He catches the ball
in a
well.
Pinch, maybe. I don't think that's going to be his role in the NFL.
I don't think it'd be his role, but can he get you through a game?
Sure. I mean, I've seen worse get them through a game.
Yeah, that's fair. Is he as good a receiver as Greg Ward?
Probably not.
Catches the ball well. He might be. But Greg's pretty good.
Greg is just, you know what you're getting?
Yeah.
I just don't know about Covey.
Yeah.
Even in camp, I mean, Greg Ward looks better than Covey.
Greg Ward had a good camp when he was healthy.
He did. Him and Mariota, for whatever reason. Do you think they could add more at tight end? Do you think they go into the season with 5?
Yeah, I think maybe 2 more.
Yeah. Do what the Lions did in the draft and just double down on running backs.
Yeah.
No, I think that's those linebackers, the obvious one, and receivers, the other one that stands out.
I would have said O-line because I don't love their depth. I think getting
problem is there's not a ton of depth in the world. No. There aren't just that many 320-pound dudes who can do that.
I think having LaRaven helps a little bit with that. But.
I ever tell you my theory that's why so many of these other leagues fail? Because there aren't enough offensive linemen in the world.
Could be true.
Because I think there are way more defensive linemen who can play at a really high, almost NFL level than there are offensive linemen to stop them. Do you agree?
I never really thought about it, but there could be something to that.
Okay. You're like, you say that you never thought about it in a way that makes me know you think I'm a nerd for having thought about
I
it.
didn't say that. You're projecting.
A little bit. We were over there today. Talk to Big Albert O.
We did.
Big
dude.
Big dude.
Big name.
Big name, big dude, a lot of vowels.
That'd be a hell of a Scrabble word. Play his last name.
I thought it was really funny. Jimmy Kemsky had a tweet the other day because on the back of his jersey, it's his last name.
Oh, yes.
And Junior. It's like the Junior's excessive. It's like on the sleeve.
It was like, how'd you like to be the equipment guy? Like, oh, yeah, put Junior at the end of that.
Yeah.
Do you play Scrabble? You ever play Scrabble?
Yeah.
I play online Scrabble once in a while on my phone, and I was playing some random opponent, and I got a bingo on the first. Your best chance to get a bingo is on your first turn. Is you have an empty board, or if you have an S.
Is that what they call it? I thought that was called Scrabble.
A bingo is a 50, a 7-letter word.
Always thought a 7-letter word was like Scrabble.
It's a bingo.
It's a bingo. That's a different game.
Scrabble. Anyway. So I got this person on a bingo on my first turn, and then they put something out that ended in S, and I got 7 new letters, and I got another bingo. So at this point, I'm up. I took a screenshot. I was up like 146-12, and they quit.
This is interesting. So bingo is a term used in North American Scrabble for a 7-letter word.
Yes.
Mattel, which manufacturers Scrabble, also uses the term bonus to describe a word. In French, it's called a Scrabble.
It's called a Calgary.
How many times are we both going to be right about stuff? Probably not often.
Probably rarely.
This might be the end of it.
But anyway, I got bingos on my first 2 turns. So I was up like 148-12.
Did they quit?
They quit.
Yeah.
Which that's when I want to play when I'm down by, like, see how
they restarted the game.
They just quit.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Talk to Alberto.
Yeah.
His head's probably swimming a little bit.
He seemed like he kind of knew. He said, I need to change the scenery.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that the Broncos were honest with him. He said that they told him, yeah, we're going to release you, but there's a chance you get traded. They were upfront with him and his agent. So it wasn't like a shock to him that all this went down. He said that he doesn't really remember a ton of contact with the Eagles pre-draft.
Well, he said with anyone who's still there.
Yeah, so maybe Justin Peele was out there.
Yeah, possibly. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how quickly he picks things up. And
I would think he's a pretty safe bet to be inactive for the first few weeks at least.
I would think so. Spoke highly of Jason Michael, his new position coach. Has already spent a lot of extra time with him picking things up. But, they have 3 tight ends, and they're fine until he's ready to go. But I like the idea of adding him, and I'm curious to see what it'll look like once he's up to speed and on the field.
Yeah. Talk to Reed Blankenship again today
for the 17th time.
It is amazing though that this guy was like celebrating making the team last year, and this year he's entering the season as a no doubt about it starter.
Yeah,
come a long way.
He has. I don't know how many times we can talk about like how he just and his staff just finding these guys, but he wasn't drafted. Reed Blankenship wasn't drafted, and there's a big emphasis on how much he played in college. He played like 100 games in college.
Yeah, 5-year starter, 419 career tackles at Middle Tennessee State.
That's almost as many as Ben Van Sumeren had against the
third preseason
against the Colts. But he went from being like, even coming into camp, it was like, all right, let's see what he's got. Was that a fluke? I didn't think it was a fluke, but he didn't play all that much. He only played in 10 games last year.
Mm-hmm.
Guy's played 10 games in his career, Reed Blankenship. And I thought right from the start of camp, you could see he was even better. He was just always in the right place. So smart, making plays, getting his hands on balls, diving.
Confident.
He had a really good camp. Really got a little swagger to him now.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, the best sign I saw from him this summer was when he picked off that ball, did the little like between the legs crossover and laid it up over the goalpost. I know that sounds silly, but the confidence from a second-year guy who doesn't have the draft status is important, because he was asked a question today about how much he thinks teams are going to challenge him, and he admitted that that's probably going to happen quite a bit. And it makes sense. You have two bona fide veteran Pro Bowl caliber corners on the outside, and you have an undrafted second-year safety who's played 10 games in the NFL.
Yeah.
Where are you throwing the ball?
That's why he might lead the team in interceptions.
It'd be a popular pick.
And he didn't camp for that. Might have been part of the reason. Especially, I mean, if you're Deshaun Watson, you're like, who's this guy?
Yeah.
I'm throwing at him. And 3 interceptions later, Deshaun Watson was on his way out of town. Why is 95 backed up at 3 in the afternoon?
Because it's always backed up.
I'm so sick of that.
Hey, no looking out that window.
Sorry.
I'm back in here.
Yeah.
Talk to Eli Ricks a little bit. I missed this, but what did he have to say?
And what a thoughtful kid. He talked about, he's had quite a journey. He talked about the ups and downs. He said he really wasn't nervous on Tuesday. He said he was just sitting there watching his phone. He said, I wasn't stressed about it. He said, I've been through so much in my career. I felt like I did everything I could do. And I felt like I'm going to be playing football somewhere. So he said, I wanted it to be here. I was hoping it would be here. He said Nick called him at 3:50 and said, what are you doing? He said, just waiting to find out if I made the team. So he made the team.
Wow.
Which was really cool. Called his parents. But, he emphasized how this isn't the end. This is like the beginning, and making the team is great. But he talked about how he's got to keep doing the things that he did to get here, which is, I'm sure, something he's heard from the veterans. He said that Goodrich and Job and Reed all had the same message to him, the older undrafted guys, that whatever's going on in practice, you can make a name for yourself in the games. That's exactly what he did.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have a great summer in practice. Although I think at the very end he did.
Yeah, he started to play better.
Yeah.
Early in camp, he was getting outplayed by Mekhi Garner.
He was. Yeah, he was. Overall, Mekhi Garner might have had a better camp, probably start finish.
Maybe.
But in those games, that's where you make a name for yourself.
And that's where the other teams see it.
And he said something interesting. He's like, yeah, I had to pick 6, but it's like you're really reliant on someone else to give you that opportunity. I forget the Ravens quarterback who threw it. It was Anthony. What's his name?
I forget because they played the better quarterback later, like nerds.
Anthony Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Was the guy. So he gave him an opportunity.
They played Huntley in like the fourth quarter trying to win that game.
Huntley make the Pro Bowl last year. He threw like 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
It's weird. And then, what really impressed me about Ricks was he had that pick 6, and his very next snap, he had a really nice pass breakup.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, you see he's just kind of going with it. He's not resting on his laurels. I don't know if that's even a thing for a young kid, but I asked him.
And then in the Colts game, he was lined up against Pittman and Alec Pierce.
Yeah.
And he held his own.
Yeah, which he said was big for him.
Those aren't like star receivers, but they're starting caliber receivers.
Yeah. And he had a lot to overcome because Job was going to make the team, and McPherson was going to make the team before he got hurt, and Ringo was going to make the team. So
there weren't many spots available.
There weren't many spots, and then Goodrich has a good camp too. More of an inside guy, I guess, both combo guy. Yeah. But Ricks is really impressive, and he doesn't carry himself like an undrafted player. He doesn't play like an undrafted player. Say the same thing about Joe.
Yeah. I don't want to take anything away from Mario Goodrich, but I think there's a difference between him and Ricks in that, the injury to Zach McPherson is the reason Goodrich is on the team.
Yeah.
I don't want, he earned it after that, but without that injury, he's not on this football team. Whereas Ricks just did it.
Yeah. I think watching Ricks, you just that's an NFL. He looks like an NFL player. Mm-hmm. He looks like an NFL cornerback. He would not have cleared. I'm convinced he would not have cleared waivers. And
I think that's also why.
Yeah, true. I don't know how a guy goes from a potential first-round pick to undrafted. I don't know enough about the draft.
Well, he was considered a first-round pick by people who don't draft too.
True.
I don't know if the league ever valued him that high. It's tough to know. Yeah. Put some truth serum in his coffee.
Well, yeah. One of those Yeah.
But he was clearly on everyone's radar because he had such a good rookie season.
Yeah. So I would expect, and I mean, why didn't the team take a flyer on him in the 5th round, 6th round? Nobody did.
I mean, neither did the Eagles.
Neither did the Eagles.
To be fair.
So there were some serious questions about him, and it did not go well his last year at Alabama, his only year at Alabama. Maybe he would have benefited from playing another year, but I think if you transfer twice, now you have to sit out a year, right? Because you used up your transfer year. I don't know. Maybe there's that extra COVID year. I'm not sure how it all works, but he was ready to play, and he answered the call. He's going to be a player.
Yeah.
I really think he's going to carve out a role in this team. I mean,
well, he's buried.
Yeah, but like in 2 years, who are the starting corners?
Sure.
You know,
I also still think there's a chance they draft corners. So
true, I agree with that, but I also think he's got a chance to be a player.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think that's about it, right?
Who else did we talk to?
Kenny Gainwell.
Talked to Goodrich. Yeah, but
good. So I did catch up with Moro Ojimo. So I'll have
but not Nicholas Morrow.
Not Nicholas Morrow. He is gone. So I will have my final surviving. It's so funny. So my series every year, typically it ends before final cuts, and I want to get their thoughts going into that stressful time in their lives. So this is kind of in a weird way, it was kind of fun to talk to a guy after he made the team,
right?
And get the story of how that went down. He of course had that concussion, so found out a little bit more about that. He never I'll give a little detail. He never lost consciousness. He was always with it.
Scary.
It was scary. He said he was more worried about his family's reaction. So he was able to call his dad from the ambulance on the way to the hospital. And most of it was precautionary, getting him checked out.
It's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he was happy that he was able to make that phone call and tell his parents he was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think that's where my mind would go too. I'm okay, but no one else knows this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And they weren't, here. So.
Yeah. That's good. And when's that going to run?
Tomorrow.
Good.
We're recording this Thursday, so I'll have that ready for Friday.
And everybody has to understand when Dave is picking a rookie to do his series on, all the rookies line up and he kind of walks up and down the line looking at them, and they're all like, pick me, pick me. It's going to the high school dance, the prettiest girl.
That is not quite how it happens. But I do try to figure out who would be a good candidate for several reasons. There are criteria.
Who's a good talker and who's got a shot to make the team.
Yeah, pretty much. All right.
He qualifies in both.
He does, for sure. Are we good here?
One quick thing. Next week, we only have 2 podcasts left before the opener in New England. We got to do our predictions.
We do.
So maybe we'll do that Tuesday.
I like that.
All right.
Are you going to come up with the categories?
Come up with the categories.
Or are you going to let me know?
If you want.
I'd like to know the categories. I'd like to prepare.
I will do that.
All right. I appreciate that. And we appreciate you guys too. So if you would do us a favor, the deal. Wherever you get your podcast, subscribe, give us a rating. The 5 stars really do help. We appreciate all the kind words. We did get a lot of them during training camp. We were asking for them. You guys delivered. So we appreciate that. That's it. The next time we talk to everyone, it'll be game week. And that is pretty darn exciting. All right. For Rube, I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye. We'll talk to you soon.